2 weeks ago, we published our 2019 review on Skate 3, pointing out that the game is pretty great. We even made the very bold decision to say that Skate 3 is the best skateboarding game that you can buy even as of 2019. And oh boy, the comment section was not happy about that. And while some people argued that Skater XL is the best skateboarding game that exists right now, and clearly I don't know anything because I didn't mention it in the video, personally I don't think Skater XL is all that good. I mean, it's an early access game with an extremely small area to skate in, and the developers seem to somewhat of abandon the game, just relying on the community to make mods. I mean, it's cool that they're going for a skateboard revival, but the game's nowhere near finished and they're still working towards a full release. And what they have released so far for $20 isn't even nearly close to the scope that we saw in Skate 3. And of course, the other argument we saw in our comment section is that Skate 2 is so much better than Skate 3. And you know what? I actually agree with a lot of those comments that Skate 2 is actually in its own way superior to Skate 3. I still stand by the fact that Skate 3 is the best skateboarding game you could buy in 2019 because of the accessibility of it being backwards compatible, where Skate 2 unfortunately seems to have been forgotten by EA. Still, that made us go ahead and decide to do a full-on retrospective of Skate 2, the game that is probably the best in the franchise. So what's up with Skate 2? Why is it so well received and deemed so highly by the community? Well, honestly, we can kind of narrow it down to two things straight up right off the bat. Honestly, the controls to Skate 2 are just extremely tight. I know it sounds kind of like a weird thing to say, but at the end of the day, Skate 2 has the complexities and real precision enabled into how you control your skater, more so than maybe the likes of Skate 3. We talked about this a little bit in the Skate 3 review, that in a way Skate 3 almost has this really odd magnetism to it to allow newer players to maybe make lands a little bit better, but it can be kind of wonky at times, causing you to easily just wipe out. And while there's still some level of magnetism in Skate 2, there's definitely the freedom to kind of do whatever you want with your skateboard or whatever type of precision you're aiming for in this game. It's kind of a weird thing to explain, but here's an easy example to look at. In Skate 2, if you want to go and do a front flip, you can do it wherever you want. Even if you are just standing there and you want to just try to do a front flip, you can try to do it and you most likely will wipe out, but the game gives you the freedom to try it. Whereas in Skate 3, you kind of have to be in the right scenario to get the flip off, and they even changed how the front flip mechanic works as a whole in Skate 3, where you have to kind of angle one side of your board first. Where in Skate 2, you can just go for it and try to do whatever type of nonsense you want to do. The other major thing that puts Skate 2 kind of above the curve when it comes to skateboarding games is just the general aesthetic to this game. Skate 3 has this really polished and colorful city, where Skate 2 kind of has this more gritty underground feel to it, and it definitely is a huge jump coming from Skate 2 to Skate 3, especially since they're only a little over a year apart in releases, and just the way that the general look of the game is. Felt like Skate 3 made an effort to clean things up to make it look newer, where Skate 2 just kind of went with what they thought looked best on the first go, and it kind of has that unique atmosphere associated with it. The locations in Skate 2 actually feel like real locations, where in Skate 3 it feels like a city that was built from the ground up with skateboarders in mind, where Skate 2, while there are some places that are obviously intended for skateboarding, feels more of an alive city where you're skating in real world situations rather than seeing a mega ramp just kind of set up in the city randomly. Sure, they still kind of had some fun with how they created certain parks and places that are intended for skateboarding, like Danny's mega ramp, which is kind of iconic in the Skate franchise, but it doesn't feel as over the top like the mega park from Skate 3. Even better, the most popular track on this entire game easily was Fun Track, which didn't feel the same way that the Mega Park felt in Skate 3, but it felt more satisfying getting a really good run, especially if you were going for an own the lot type game type. Sure, some of the game types in this game didn't work as well as they maybe did in Skate 3, like Death Race for example. If you crash, you really get set back behind, where in Skate 3 they gave you a kind of a push start to keep you in the race. Honestly, wiping out and losing all of your progress in a race because you can't get your speed back is pretty dumb. One of the staples of the skate games, Hall of Meat, is in Skate 2, and honestly, some of the tracks on this are really, really fun. Like the dam where you just throw yourself into an empty dam because why not? And for some reason, I actually prefer the mechanics of Hall of Meat in Skate 2 better than in Skate 3. I don't know, I always was kind of annoyed how in Skate 3 players can continue to manipulate their player even after surviving like a 100-foot fall and just make their character jump up and springboard and continue to roll. Where I felt like with Skate 2, you just kind of throw yourself and that's kind of it. Skate 2 also felt really competitive with just the general skate game type. It was also in Skate 3, but in Skate 2, it just felt a little bit more doable. Maybe because the guide that shows you how to flick your analog stick is a little clearer than it was in Skate 3, but also the courses and levels and sections they chose for the one-on-ones for Skate were actually really good. The stairs at the library were one of the most popular skate locations and extremely competitive for other players. It really separated the noobs from the players who have put a lot of time into it because, for instance, on the library stairs, you won't even be able to clear the stairs if you are Mongo pushing. It's a pretty serious thing in the skate community. You gotta remember, guys, press X to push your board, not A. It separates the boys and the men. But yeah, library stairs was iconic, especially if you could get that foot plant jump to do some crazy rotation down at the stairs. I remember spending so much time trying to learn how to do that just so I could keep up whenever I one-on-one someone in the skate game type. It kind of was a glitch, but at the same time it really wasn't. And that was another thing about this game. Yeah, it can be pretty wonky at times. I mean, it's a game made by EA, and there are a lot of glitches, but the glitches are kind of really fun. Like there's the no comply glitch that just throws you up in the air and you can just die a little bit harder. Sure, it gives you an unfair advantage when you're playing Hall of Meat competitively, but for the most part, everyone figured out this glitch relatively quickly, so it just became a matter of who can do the glitch in the coolest spot and get the most points racked up. It could also be used to get yourself to places you might not have been able to get before just by kind of catapulting yourself up in the air. Why this glitch is in the game, I don't know, but it is pretty funny. There are also some really fun speed glitches that involve you just jumping and getting off your board and getting back on really quickly. They can help you traverse the area quicker, but it also kind of gave you an extra push sometimes if you were struggling to maybe get enough speed or height off of a ramp, and it was kind of a fun glitch. It just feels like as a whole though, this game mostly was well grounded in itself and its self-awareness and wasn't necessarily trying to reach a larger audience. And maybe that's why the more precision controls benefited in this game more, because the fans of the skate type games were willing to kind of get past that learning curve, where in Skate 3 it felt like they maybe kind of changed the physics a little bit to make the game a little more accessible to new players rather than keeping the general gameplay style in line with what they did with Skate 2. I mean, this game easily has one of the biggest learning curves in any sports type game, but the payoff overall is quite worth it. Oh, and random people can run up and tase you, so that's kind of fun too. Honestly, as a teenager, this was one of my favorite games to just kind of sit back and play, whether I was just kind of chatting with friends or just really focused in the game. I really spent so much time in Skate 2. It even made me want to take up skateboarding, and after a couple hours of that, I fell off, broke my foot, and there was a hole punched in my parents' garage door that's still there today. But it did give me more time to spend indoors playing Skate 2, so there was that. Also, the soundtrack of this game, it's a little bit unique. Not really music I think I would listen to on my own free time, but for Skate 2, it kind of had this really iconic feel to it that fit in with just the aesthetic that went with this game, and it was pretty good overall. I really appreciate the soundtrack of this game. Maybe one day we'll actually get a Skate 4 and it could be a perfect mix of what they did in Skate 2 and Skate 3, but I would really like to see a Skate 2 port onto the Xbox One, at least the backwards compatibility. It wouldn't take too much work from EA, and I believe the servers as of now are back up again, even though they were shut down for a while, so it's definitely a game people would like to see, even if they didn't ever really put Skate 4 out there. Sure, visually the game might not be as appealing right away from a newcomer's perspective as maybe Skate 3 is, especially just because the graphics don't really hold up as well all these years later. Like, some of the textures are kind of wonky, and this game could definitely benefit from maybe some new anti-aliasing added in. Actually, a remaster would be really appreciated, but you know EA, they won't do it. But overall, if we had to look back at this game, even though it's not available and it's not as accessible as we wish it could be, and the graphics aren't necessarily as crisp as maybe we would like them to look nowadays, if you have an Xbox 360, you find a used copy of Skate 2 somewhere for a good deal, definitely pick this game up because you can just pour so much time into this game. It is absolutely a blast by yourself or online. We gave Skate 3 a B+, and we're going to also give Skate 2 a B+, even though we agree that Skate 2 is slightly better than Skate 3. It is a great game and definitely deserves the rating that it gets. It's just the accessibility issues and just kind of some of the appearance things that haven't really aged as well as maybe we wish it could have. Just kind of keep it as an equal to Skate 3, even though it, you know, in our head it's better. But that's it for today, guys. Let us know what you thought of Skate 2. Did you enjoy this game? Which is better, Skate 2 or Skate 3? Leave it in a comment down below. If you like these retrospectives on Xbox 360 games and things like that, be sure to subscribe to this channel because we do a ton of stuff like that, and we will see you guys all next time with a brand new video.